Coruscant was utter chaos. The people demanded blood for the nuclear attack on the clones. Demonstrations erupted when people chanted to use the same vulgar form of warfare. Those in the opposition stated the Republic should never have joined the war in the first place. A high-priority gathering of the Jedi Council followed shortly, and the discussions went just as chaotic. There were some who advised to attack the Imperial base head-on, cripple them at the head. There were others who said that would demand too many sacrifices from their side again. One Jedi argued to initiate Plan JS-13, but all other Jedi fundamentally were against using that kind of warfare, mostly as they did not yet know the extent of the possible consequences. There were those who wished to fortify the clone facilities more, as another devastating loss like Kashyyyk could put a serious dent in the credibility of the Republic. And the discussion of Thrawn also got heated, as his reputation had grown with both enemies and supporters. Another win in his favor could be devastating for morale, making him like an untouchable entity to his enemies. Two Jedi by the name of Tenoro Mura and Chase Hota advised an execution of the Grand Admiral by Rebel or Republic spies. This discussion lingered for a while, as most Jedi agreed that Thrawn needed to disappear. But the majority voted against it, as it was simply too risky. The debates were everlasting, exhausting the minds and lips of the old and wise. And it is here where the young ones vote with action. Tenoro and Chase were furious about the denial of their plan, especially as they got some support by others. Chase, the younger of the two, convinced his superior, and they decided to take matters into their own hands. Through a third party, they hired two bounty hunters with the task of executing Thrawn. The bounty hunters in question were the Rodian Greedo and the Trandoshan Bossk. They offered them an amount they could not refuse. Thrawn's reputation had grown amongst the galaxy, and many bounty hunters were aware of the attractive bounties the other factions put on his head. As it was believed Thrawn was still in the vicinity of Kashyyyk, tracking him down was not a problem. On Scarif, the assault to retrieve the AT-AT was in full effect. The AT-AT stood grounded as the grand prize, protected by a handful of Imperial troops, dazed and confused by the sudden attack. Scarif's jungle provided necessary cover as the rebels proceeded through the thick vegetation. In response, the Imperial units used mortars to thin out the enemy as they approached. From deep within the jungle, rocket units used their heavy weapons to prove the stormtroopers' cover obsolete. The regular Imperial infantry had trouble pinpointing the enemy, often getting killed before taking anyone out. It did not take long before the front turret fell, making it easier for the rebels to proceed. The Imperial mortars had unrooted many trees, scarring and blackening the terrain. The remaining army troopers stood no chance. They had little to no cover and were cornered at the end of the island. Rebel spirits were high, and victory was assured, but there was a disturbance in the water. The rebels were spreading over the courtyard, preparing to decouple the AT-AT and override its controls. The infantry was picking off any last stragglers, and ready to haul in the reward. But in the background loomed danger, as a patrolling AT-AT saw the chaos from afar, and approached to reinforce the Imperial troops. This was a kind of power the rebels did not expect to deal with, and the deadly blast of the walkers set the jungle on fire. Panicked screams of rebels echoed through the trees, as the smoldering heat spread across the island. Then, all communications with the rebel assault team were suddenly lost. On Kashyyyk, Greedo and Bossk had gotten word that Thrawn was currently present at a fuel resource station. It was easy for the two bounty hunters to get in. After dealing with what little resistance they ran into, they found a way in through the tunnels leading to the garbage disposal. They managed to get in unnoticed, which went exactly as planned. The station was big. Finding Thrawn in this location would prove quite difficult. After running around for a while, they managed to find an officer and ask her for information while being held at gunpoint. She said that Thrawn would have a meeting with his body doubles and some high-ranking officers discussing the next area of interests. Bossk and Greedo dealt with her quietly. Finding the meeting room was no problem, and Bossk immediately set up a blast charge at one of the panels. He had to hurry as the Imperial higher-ups would soon arrive. After setting it up, the two bounty hunters went upstairs to overlook the assassination from afar. When Thrawn, his body doubles, and officers arrived, they each got seated and started their discussion. One of the officers presented the new strategy and orders coming straight from the top. Bossk seemed confident. The fact that Thrawn's body doubles were present made it perfect to use the bomb as a way of killing to guarantee everyone died, instead of just killing the wrong man by accident. But Greedo had a sudden change of mind. It was clear who the real Thrawn was, as he sat at the head of the table. Killing Thrawn with a blaster could convey the enemy's message better. The kill would be more personal. He was sure they could demand more credits from their provider if they did it his way. Bossk disagreed. He liked a more messy approach. Greedo wanted to wait until the meeting was over and keep an eye on the real Grand Admiral to take him out up close, but Bossk insisted on the golden opportunity they were sitting on. Then another officer stepped into the room and informed Thrawn of something. He stood up and was escorted out. Greedo saw this as their chance to strike, and he and Bossk quickly ran in pursuit. They followed Thrawn through several corridors and eventually ran up on him in an isolated room. Thrawn did not seem alarmed by the bounty hunter's presence. Instead, he complimented the two on locating him and the inability for him to fight back. He was unarmed. This was their moment, he mocked. Thrawn had a confident grin on his face. Greedo was confused. It made him uneasy. Then suddenly Bossk hit Greedo hard on the head, stunning the Rodian. With a calm voice, Thrawn thanked the Trandoshan and ordered him to force Greedo onto his knees. Greedo's mind was scrambled. He did not understand what was going on. Thrawn saw the confusion in his face and offered an explanation. With the rise of bounties on his head, Thrawn offered a much larger bounty to a few hand-picked hunters in order to keep an eye out. They would act as his non-affiliated watchdogs. But not even Thrawn could have foreseen the two Jedi hiring two hunters in secret to execute him, of which one was on the inside. The opportunity was too good to pass, and thus a scheme was plotted. A failed assassination attempt would surely raise compassion with several neutral factions, and therefore he ordered Bossk to plan a small charge during the meeting. The blast radius would have been small enough to take out all of the body doubles and officers, but keep Thrawn alive. If the plan would go different, Bossk guaranteed Thrawn's safety. Greedo could not believe it, and what he found even more unbelievable was that Thrawn ordered Bossk to detonate a charge in the end after all. It was nothing personal, Thrawn assured him. The death of the doubles and officers would make the attempt seem more severe. It would create a better story. But Greedo had still an important part to play, and Thrawn ordered Bossk to restrain him. Soon after, a conference was held by a few Imperial generals, informing the rest of the galaxy of the assassination attempt. Their chosen words made the incident seem very dramatic, painting Thrawn as untouchable and a courageous leader who escaped with his life due to his wits. Greedo at the time was being held in the prison cell, unsure of what his fate would be. The general announced that Greedo was sent by the Republic in a cowardless act behind the scenes instead of on the battlefield. It was a showcase of how irresponsible the Republic was willing to go in order to take out the great leaders of the Empire. During the propaganda speech, the general revealed that Greedo had been sentenced to die. The execution would be broadcasted as well to showcase harsh justice. Thrawn played up the victim part well and won the compassion of many. High-ranking officials had come together to hear what the Rodian had to say. Greedo spoke of the two Jedi who ordered the execution and the cruel use of war tactics shown with this incident. His voice was trembling, revealing to some he was forced to practice those words beforehand. From all over the galaxy, everyone watched and listened to his words as the Republic was portrayed as the wrongdoers. To most, this propaganda did not work, as they were all too familiar with the Imperial's war crimes, but for some, it convinced them to sympathize with the Empire. Then Greedo was positioned in front of the firing squad, and with a few blasts, his lifeless body fell to the ground. His body was on full display for everyone to watch. Those in favor of the Empire cheered as they set his body on fire. The broadcast was also seen by Grand Moff Tarkin, who was very intrigued by Thrawn's strategy. He felt convinced that Thrawn would be a precious pawn to play in terms of strategy. After this incident, his popularity and untouchable myth rose even more, boosting morale and number of recruits. And in case he died, the loss of a beloved leader would fuel those troops to fight even more. Either alive or dead, he would be most useful. After the incident, Tenoro and Chase were forced to step down. There was word of possible prosecution to follow. The effect of the incident turned out exactly as Thrawn had planned, as Umbara, previously only partially affiliated with the Separatists, announced it would allow the building of Imperial facilities and outposts under Slime War's jurisdiction, who was an avid supporter of the Emperor. In response to this, the Republic declared war on Umbara.